Welcome to the Pillar 9 CREB migration training. My name is Charlotte Tran, and I'm here with Ryan Smith. We are doing a pre-recorded session of the training for you to watch on demand at any time. Please note there is a participant guide that goes along with the training, which you can access through the Pillar 9 website. There's a link to the Pillar 9 webinar page in the chat box. You can find the participant guide here along with other training resources. It's recommended that you follow along with the training with the participant guide. It's a very valuable resource that you can refer to if needed. Now, I'd like to pass it over to Ryan.
Thank you, Charlotte, and hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Smith. I've been a licensed realtor in the Calgary area now for about 8 years, and I've been an instructor with the Calgary Real Estate Board for about the past 5 years. As Charlotte said in her preamble, our education department here at the Real Estate Board has been contracted by Pillar 9 to help with the migration training across the province of Alberta. So we've done similar training now for every board across the province that's participating under Pillar 9, which of the 10 boards is obviously 9 of those boards. The only one abstaining at this point in time is the Edmonton Real Estate Board. That may change at some point in the future. But I'm here today to take you through this pre-recorded session with respect to the matrix migration from your current matrix system that you're all using right now onto the Pillar 9 platform. Now, you're going to see as we move through this training, much of what we're going to discuss is going to be very familiar to you. This Pillar 9 platform is built on the Matrix platform or the Matrix interface as well. So much of the functionality that you currently get out of the Matrix system that you're using today will be very, very similar to the functionality of the Pillar 9 system. However, we want to make sure that anything that is slightly different or requires your attention or requires you to optimize certain things that you're addressing and you're taking care of to get the most out of this new Pillar 9 system sort of post-migration and moving forward. All right. So the course we're going to move through over the next couple of hours here is designed to familiarize you with this new Pillar 9 Matrix MLS system, and more importantly, I guess, the listing input tool. You will see that as we move through the course here, the listing input tool, which is sort of the third module that I'm going to cover in the next couple hours, is the most dramatic difference or the biggest change from the current listing or the listing input tool that you currently use on your matrix system. Obviously, the whole goal of this is to support your transition over to this new system. The course here is going to highlight the key areas that have changed. It reviews areas that you should update and describes any new processes that you're going to need in order to navigate the system. It also provides a more in-depth look into both the search functionality and, again, the new listing input tool, which we've already discussed, in order to ensure that you have the knowledge you need to use the system quickly and easily during this transition. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar with Pillar 9, I guess before I get ahead of myself, you see the course modules there. Again, this will take us roughly a couple hours to complete. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Pillar 9, again, I've already stated that Pillar 9 makes up 9 of the 10 real estate boards across the province of Alberta, with the exception of the Edmonton board. It is a for-profit technology company. It was established to provide a single-point MLS system for Alberta realtors. In addition to this single-point MLS system, Pillar 9 as a tech company is also going to provide subscribers with access to agent efficiency tools and support services. Now, this particular webinar does not speak to those additional tools and services. Those things will be rolled out in subsequent webinars and further down the line. The focus of today's webinar is strictly to get everyone familiar with the Matrix interface under the Pillar 9 system. Again, this provides all Alberta realtors with access to provincial listings across the province, again, with the exception of the Edmonton board. Because of the cooperation of these 9 boards and the Alberta Real Estate Association, it's led to increased buying power, lower fees, and ultimately allowing us to respond to the changing technology landscape in the real estate industry. So you can see a slide here of obviously what's displayed, sort of what's in it for you. Again, this Pillar 9 tech company is owned by the Realtor Boards and the Alberta Real Estate Association in conjunction. Again, you have a single point data access throughout the entire province of Alberta. And ultimately, again, speaking to providing you a full suite of real estate tech tools and services to support your real estate business. Now, in order to facilitate this change, and to guide you through this migration process, there have been a number of tools that have been set up to help make this transition as smooth as possible. So in addition to webinars like the one that you're listening to right now, We're going to be running some live training webinars for CREB agents on an ongoing basis. But in addition, there's some more, I guess, static tools that you see displayed on your screen here. So there is a help desk, there's a phone number there, there's an email address, and obviously you see the hours of operation. In addition, if you haven't already, you can visit pillar9.com, and on there you'll find pre-recorded sessions such as this one. You're going to find other video tutorials. If you like, there is a browser extension called WalkMe that you can download onto your or through your web browser. It's an on-demand automated training navigator which will help navigate you through this new system. So again, in addition to the live training sessions or the pre-recorded sessions as this one is, there's a whole host of tools to help facilitate and guide your migration onto this new Pillar 9 system. All right, I'm going to navigate away here from our PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to navigate directly onto the Pillar 9 system, and we're going to move our way through talking about some of the nuances of this new Pillar 9 system, and again, things that you may need to optimize or initiate in order to get the most out of this. And if you are following along in the student guide within your course material, I'm on roughly pages 4 through 6 of that course guide, and I'll do my best to make reference to the different pages that we're on throughout today's session here. So as you can see, first and foremost, this user interface, this dashboard, control panel, whatever you want to call it, looks and functions very, very similarly to the matrix system that you're all currently using. So the change for our board in particular here at CREB has not been as dramatic as some of the other boards who were using different interfaces other than matrix prior to this conversion over to Pillar 9. But again, there's going to be some things here that you're going to want to optimize in order to get the most out of. The first thing that I want to bring your attention to is the Market Watch tab. So just sort of up here in the upper middle column, by default, this tool or this widget is going to be pooling data from all across the province of Alberta. So by way of example, if you're looking at new listings back on market, increases, decreases, the number of pendings and solds, etc., it's pooling data from all over the province. You're going to want to customize this to be more relevant to the market area that you serve. And the way that you do that is you can use this little customization tool down in the bottom right-hand corner. And you can select based on geographic region, either using the map-based tools or by using a city or multiple cities. And if you want to drill down even further, you could enter in, communities or subdivisions into this field here. Now, these fields are slightly different from what we currently have on our current matrix system under the CREB banner. Again, right now, I believe we have region and area. These are now changing, and we'll talk more about this when we go through the search functionality in sort of our second module of today's session. But instead of having region or area, you now see that you have county and city. So again, if you want to choose a larger geographic area, for example, the county of Rocky View, you could do that. If you want to choose a city, for example, the city of Calgary, or you could choose multiple cities if you include other neighboring communities that you do business in. Bottom line, once you've selected your geographic area, go down to the bottom here in the bottom left-hand corner and select Save. And then moving forward, this Market Watch tool will only be pooling data from your selections rather than across the entire province of Alberta. So again, by default, it's pulling data from everywhere. You're going to want to customize it to a geographic location that's more appropriate for your business. Now, keep in mind with this Market Watch tool, you can change the product type that you're looking at. And again, we'll explore more of these product types or more information about these product types as we move through the search functionality. But currently, I'm looking at residential. If I wanted to move and look strictly at land, or if I wanted to look at commercial, or if I wanted to look at agribusiness, I have the ability to make those selections. And then I can also customize the time frame that I'm looking. So if I want it to be the past 24 hours, or simply today's calendar date, the past 3 days, the past 7 days, those are all options that you can explore and customize to fit your needs. Directly beside that, you have this widget here, which is called Hot Sheets. Now, I know for many agents, you've created some custom hot sheets that you might refer to on a pretty regular basis within your current matrix platform. Unfortunately, any hot sheets that you've created under the current platform will not be coming over as part of the migration. It just simply wasn't possible to migrate those hot sheets over with the search parameters that people may have selected. Therefore, you're going to have to recreate any custom hot sheets that you have. And the way to do that is to use this little Customize tab down here in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, you can add new hot sheets, or you can edit the criteria of existing hot sheets and rename them. And you can drill down, if you like, right down to a community level and create a hot sheet that will show you, different market changes or price decreases or increases or new properties on the market or sold. And again, you can customize these fully to meet your needs as an agent. So again, if you have hot sheets that you're currently using, custom hot sheets that you're currently using under your matrix system, again, those will not have come over as part of the migration. You will need to recreate those custom hot sheets by using this customize option here, okay? Now, the next thing I want to show you, and really the final thing as it pertains to these widgets here before we move on to talk about the tabs across the top, are my favorite searches. Anytime you create a saved search within Matrix, or it could also be within an auto email campaign to a client, you can choose to mark it as a favorite. And if you mark it as a favorite, it will display here under the My Favorite Searches tab. Now, you can only mark 10 searches total as a favorite search, but again, up to 10 searches will live under this widget. You will see that at migration, any favorite searches that you had created within your current Matrix platform will not have migrated over as a favorite search. Everything will come over as a saved search, but you're going to need to reinitiate all of your favorite searches, and I will show you how to do that momentarily when we get a little bit more in depth with searching auto emails and these types of things. So again, at migration, your My Favorite Searches will not be displayed. They will all come over as saved searches, and you will be obligated to reinitiate those as favorite searches, okay? That's really all the information to discuss as respect to these widgets. As before, and as stated already, these operate very, very similar, in fact, almost identically to the widgets that you currently have on your current Matrix platform. Again, you can move them around, you can collapse them, you can expand them, all of these types of things. But the ones you're going to want to pay attention to get the most out of, Market Watch, Hot Sheets, and again, speaking to My Favorite Searches. Now that brings us to the tabs across the top here. So this is our home screen, or what I like to call the control panel or the dashboard, however you like to term it. Beside that, we have search. We're going to cover this in more detail in sort of our second module. Beside that, we have the ability to create stats packages. This roster tab is new, and this contains information for members, and it was previously called agents under the search tab. And it also contains information for offices as well. You're going to be able to choose by board. So if you're doing a member search, you would have the ability to select from the 9 different boards who are participating in Pillar 9, but you can use this roster tab to either search for a cooperating member or another real estate brokerage as well. Now, under this My Matrix tab, there's going to be a number of things that you're going to want to make sure you pay attention to here to get the most out of this new system. And again, if you're following along in your course material, I'm on pages 8 and 9, give or take, of the course material here. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure your contacts have migrated successfully. Now, of course, every effort will be made to ensure that your contact list comes over correctly. However, I would suggest you take a quick skim through it, make sure names and emails have migrated correctly. You will see beside the name of each and every one of your contacts, there is, as was before, a little drop-down arrow. If you click on that, it will expand the contact card. If there are multiple emails, you can double-check the multiple emails here. If you need to edit the contact or update any of the information, you can choose Edit Contact. Come in here and again, make sure first name, last name, email addresses have migrated correctly. You can also use, as before, this Show All Fields box, which will expand and allow you to customize or enter home information, business information, any notes that you want to create about the client, etc. So again, with respect to your contact list, just make sure that your contacts have migrated successfully. Obviously, this might be an opportunity for you to clean up your database. You may have contacts within your database that you haven't had any activity with for a number of years. And of course, you could go through and clean it up at this time while you're cross-referencing your current Matrix system to this new Pillar 9 system. On that note, and I don't think I've mentioned this yet, you will all have read-only access to this new Pillar 9 system on June the 29th. The full data migration will happen between July the 7th and 8th. And then for 2 weeks, give or take, after that, you will have read-only access to your current Matrix platform. So again, after the full data migration on July 7th and 8th, you'll have full system access to Pillar 9. you'll have read-only access to your current matrix system. So you'll have the ability to log into your current system, again, under read-only access, to cross-reference and make sure that the information has pulled over correctly as it pertains to things like your contacts and your searches, which we're going to talk about here momentarily, okay? All right, below contacts, you have your saved searches. And like I've said already, all of your saved searches or any search that you have created and set up in your current matrix platform will migrate over as a saved search under this Pillar 9 system. Now, there's a couple important things that I want you to notice. First and foremost, all of your searches that come over from your current system will say imported because they've been imported into the Pillar 9 system from your current system. Now, again, when these data migrations take place, anytime you're migrating sets of data and bringing them together, every effort is made to convert the saved searches completely and entirely and accurately, I guess I should say as well. However, some of the fields, and we'll speak to this when we look at the listing input tool or when we look at the search tool, some of the fields have changed or are slightly different or have been removed, and therefore it's not possible to convert 100% of a saved search in every situation. So if this is the case, you will see an asterisk in the name of the saved search. And what this is telling you is that the current criteria is incomplete or inaccurate in some way. So again, if you have saved searches that have migrated over and they have an asterisk in the name, what this is telling me is I need to go in and I need to update the criteria for this search. How do I do that? Well, I use this little drop-down arrow here. I open up this expanded list of commands and things that I can do, and I go under criteria. Now, at the same time, I would also want to open up, ideally, my saved search from my current matrix platform. So I have the current matrix platform open, and I can compare that criteria to the Pillar 9 criteria, and I can make sure that I update the criteria in the Pillar 9 system to make sure that my search is operating as I had intended it to do, okay? The other thing you can do from here with any of your saved searches is under settings, you can enable these as favorites. So you remember I said before, your favorite searches will have come over as saved searches, but you're going to need to manually turn them back on as a favorite. This is how you do it. You find the search in question, you go under settings, and you can enable it as a favorite search and then select save. Remember, you can only do that for up to 10 searches, and those 10 searches will live on your home screen under your favorite searches. Now let's talk about auto emails. And again, on pages roughly 10 and 11 of your course material. So your auto emails will all migrate over as saved searches, okay? They will not come over as an auto email. They will come over as a saved search, and it will be your job to reactivate them as an auto email. Now, it's important to remember, you have read-only access of this Pillar 9 system starting on June the 29th. Do not turn on any active auto emails from Pillar 9 until after the complete data migration has taken place on July the 7th and the 8th. The reason is you're going to have a redundant setup and you're going to have to reinitiate it after the full migration. So wait until the full migration has taken place, again, July 7th through 8th. Once that's done, then you can initiate your auto emails. So again, any auto emails you had under your current matrix system, your current CREB system, they will come over as a saved search. Just like before, they will say imported. The difference is they will have a plus sign in front of them if they were set up as an auto email in your current system. So if you have any names of your searches with a plus sign in front of them, this is telling you that this was formerly an auto email within your former system, and it needs to be reactivated as such in this current system. How do you do that? Again, you can use the drop-down menu. Again, you can go to settings. Keeping in mind, you may have a situation where there's an asterisk in here as well. So I may need to update the criteria first. Once I've updated the criteria to be configured under the Pillar 9 system, I can then go to settings. And at the very top here, where it says turn this saved search into an auto email, this would allow me to reinitiate this search as an auto email, okay? I'm gonna put in my subject line. I can make customizations to the welcome email and the recurring email. I can customize the email signature, etc. All of the same things you could do under your current system. You then determine, are you setting it up as a concierge search? or are you setting up truly as an automated search? And if that's the case, what schedule are you following? Is it ASAP, daily, monthly, etc.? And then ultimately, you would come down to the bottom here and hit save. Now, keep in mind, any searches that you had set up as auto emails, even if they have been disabled by you in your current system, will come over with a plus sign in front of them. So remember, before you turn on this auto email in the Pillar 9 system, make sure you actually had it as an active auto email under the Matrix platform. Again, you have the read-only access for up to 2 weeks after the data migration has taken place. So you should have lots of time, hopefully, to cross-reference what is currently up and running under your current system and make sure you can reconfigure that and replicate it under the Pillar 9 system, okay? The one other thing that I should note is under this system, when I turn this property on as a new auto email, my client will receive a new welcome email. This is a brand new URL, it's a brand new system, and therefore, even if the client has been receiving properties for even several months under the current system, they're going to receive a new welcome email. They're going to have to click on the link in order to continue the flow of properties under the Pillar 9 system. So make sure you use that as a touch point, have that conversation with your clients so that they are fully aware of that as well. Also under My Matrix here, you see My Listings. Obviously, every effort has been made to make sure that any active listings that you're carrying over have come over 100% complete and accurate. That said, I would strongly encourage you to double check the accuracy of all your listings. We're going to be talking more about this when we go through the listing input tool, because there is a verification that will need to take place for any active emails that are coming from the current system and migrating over to the Pillar 9 system. But again, under My Matrix and My Listings, you can double check the accuracy of your current listings in addition to what we'll talk about when we go through the listing input tool. Under My Information, none of this information will have migrated over. You are going to need to replicate anything that you have in here. So this goes along with your branding, your marketing. When a client is viewing properties that you've sent them in an auto email or you've just sent them through an email and they're going into their client portal, things like the header and the footer will need to be reconfigured so that your branding stays consistent with what you had within your current Matrix system. If you had a custom banner, for example, that you utilize in your business, you're going to have to reinitiate that custom banner or re-upload that custom banner into the Pillar 9 system. Again, you want to make sure that obviously all of this is consistent with your current Matrix platform. Again, you have the read-only access to help facilitate that. That goes also into the CMA cover sheet. It also goes into the email signature, any customizations you've made to the portal profile as well. All of that will need to be reconfigured within the Pillar 9 system. Also under My Matrix, you have My CMAs. Now, unfortunately, there was no way for the CMAs that are in your current system to be migrated over. It just wasn't possible for that to happen. Therefore, you have a couple options. With respect to any CMAs that you currently have under your Matrix platform, you can download those. Remember, again, you have the read-only access for a couple of weeks after the data migration. So you can download any CMAs that you need from your current Matrix system, save them to the cloud, save them to your hard drive, whatever it is that you want to do. Alternatively, again, because you have that read-only access, if you wanted to, you can replicate any CMAs that you wanted to bring over to the Pillar 9 system. However, that replication would be manual. There is no way to automate that process. So again, downloading the CMAs might be the best way to go from your current Matrix system, and then again, saving them to the cloud or the local device, whatever it is that you want to do, okay? All right, that's really it for differences and optimizations with respect to these tabs across the top here and this main dashboard or landing page, with the exception of this listing input tool up here in the top right corner. But again, we're going to cover that off in kind of our third and final module. Before we get there, let's navigate over to the searching tool, and let's talk a little bit about how searching is slightly different under this Pillar 9 system than it was under the Matrix system that we currently are in use at the Calgary Real Estate Board. So I'm just going to expand my search tab here. And the first thing that you're going to notice is that currently within the CREB system, when you go to do a search, you're basically doing it on product type or construction type. So right now you have choices like attached or detached or apartment, etc. they've condensed those choices into something that they're calling residential. And in addition, they've added a different category here that's called multifamily, but it's more synonymous, in my opinion, with calling it multi-unit. So before we get too far, I just want to read off the definitions that I have for each of these product categories. So now moving forward, when you go to perform a search on behalf of a client or for whatever those needs are, these are the categories that you're going to select from initially. This also will be replicated when we get into the listing input tool, because when you go to load a listing, you're going to start with one of these broad categories and then drill it down from there. So residential, the definition that I have for you here is that this is a property that is owned for people to live in. This includes the detached, the semi-detached, the row, and the condominium properties. Please note, mobile homes that are being sold with deeded land, so deeded or titled land, should also be included in this property type as a detached listing. Below that, you have multifamily. And like I said before, in my mind, this is more synonymous with multi-unit, because this is a listing where there are between 2 and 4 units that are being sold together. And this is regardless of whether or not they are connected. So I'll give you the classic example, and we'll say a fourplex. If 4 units are being sold together, it would be listed and searched under multifamily. If you were doing a land amalgamation and you had 3 parcels of land being sold together, whether or not they are connected, it would be listed and searched under multifamily, or again, multi-unit. Please note as well, and I'm sure you're all familiar with this, in order to practice in a transaction of 5 or more units together, you must be licensed by RECA for commercial real estate, and any grouping of 5 or more units or 5 or more parcels would be listed and searched under commercial. And again, that would require a commercial license. Below this, you have agribusiness. This would be a property where the primary this is a property where the primary purpose is agricultural. Below that, you have land. This would be a property that does not have a dwelling on it. This could include rural acreage parcels and vacant residential lots. This should include all land parcels regardless of their zoning. Residential properties being sold with condemned buildings. So if it's a residential property and it has a condemned residence on it, it should also be sold as land. Below that, you have mobile. This would be a mobile home on leased or rented land. Remember, again, if it's a mobile home being sold on titled or deeded land, it would go under residential. If it is on leased land, it would go under its own category as mobile. Remember, of course, there must be a land component for a real estate transaction, a piece of real property, so to speak. So if there's no piece of real property, if it's just somebody who approaches you saying, look, I want to sell my mobile home, and they don't own the land or rent the land, they just want to sell the actual unit itself, that is not a real estate transaction. That would go on Kijiji or some similar site, not onto the Pillar 9 system. Below that, you have commercial. This is going to be your office, your retail, your industrial, your light industrial. Again, this would be multi-unit listings where there are 5 or more units being sold in a single transaction. And below that, you have a cross-property search. Now, similar to our current system here at the Calgary Real Estate Board, you can perform a cross-property search to encompass multiple different product types. So the quickest example I could give is if you had an investor client who was looking for a multi-unit building, whether it was a 3-plex or a 4-plex or a 5-plex or a 6-plex, you would set it up as a cross-property search, because the 3 and the 4-plex would fall under multifamily, whereas the 5 or the 6-plex would fall under commercial. Now, of course, make sure you have the correct license for the transaction that you are facilitating, but that's how you would, one example of how you could use a cross-property search to bring in a combination of different categories from this list above here, okay? Now, on page 14 of your participant guide, there is a chart that's been developed which shows how the current search parameters within the Calgary Real Estate Board matrix system fall under the search parameters of this Pillar 9 system. Now I'm going to go in here by way of example and just go into the residential search feature. And again, you're going to see that this dashboard or this interface looks very, very similar, but slightly different, but very, very similar to what you're used to under the CREB, the current CREB system. First here, let's talk about the different statuses or statuses of these properties. Again, some of these are going to be very familiar with you. There are some subtle changes that we do need to be aware of though. So first and foremost, you have active. This would be a scenario where there's an MLS listing contract in effect and the listing is being marketed through the board's MLS system. The listing is, of course, viewable by you, the members, and it's also being pushed to external websites like realtor.ca. Of course, your listing must contain all required fields and pass validation before it can be made active. We'll speak about that when we get into the listing input tool. Below this, you have pending. Now, under this Pillar 9 system, they have amalgamated or incorporated the statuses of pending and under contract. So we no longer have pending and under contract, we only have pending, okay? This would be an MLS listing that is subject to a conditional offer, which is no longer being marketed through the board's MLS system to external websites like realtor.ca. The listing is viewable by members as pending, but is not pushed to external websites, again, such as realtor.ca. Below that, you have sold. Very straightforward, really no change here at all. The MLS listing is reported sold when subject to an offer with no conditions remaining other than the closing. This means the MLS listing is changed to sold when conditions are removed. Below that, you have withdrawn. This is where an MLS listing contract is in effect, but the listing has been temporarily removed from being visible on the board's MLS system. The status allows for listing to be temporarily removed for various reasons for up to 10 calendar days as per the harmonized rule. The days on market counter will continue to accumulate. Below that, you have expired listings. This would be where an MLS listing term or the term of the contract has ended. The listing has reached its contract end date without an amendment or an extension of the listing. Therefore, it's an expired listing. Below that, you have terminated. Now, you no longer have the ability to search by conditionally terminated. The status of terminated in this case includes conditionally terminated listings. I will explain that in greater detail as we go through the listing input tool at the back end of this webinar. But this would be an MLS listing contract that has been mutually terminated by the seller and the brokerage. The associate must, of course, complete a termination form and submit it to their broker for processing. Now, on page 17 of your course material, you have another chart which shows you how the current statuses that you have under the CREB matrix system have been integrated into this Pillar 9 matrix system. Very quickly, on pages 18 and 19, you also have some information about leased properties. So leased is no longer a property status. It can now be found as a transaction type. You can find instructions on, again, page 18 of your participant guide on how to search for leased properties, and that's why you don't see leased here under status. Now below that, you have property subtypes. So when you're selecting a residential property, you will now have to select the type of property using the property subtype. So you can see here you have apartment, you have detached, you have recreational, you have row and townhouse, and you have semi-D or semi-detached. So here are the definitions of those. An apartment, first of all, at the top here, would be a unit within a building with interior enclosed hallways, very similar to the definition we had previously of apartment. Detached would, of course, be a home or a unit that is not attached to any other unit. Recreational would be a property that does not have year-round living and is primarily used for seasonal recreational activity. Below that, you have row house and townhouse. This would be a unit or a home that is in a building where there are 3 or more living units and the entrance to the property is directly to the outside. So again, a unit or a home that is in a building where there are 3 or more living units that are attached and the entrance to that unit is directly to the outside. Below that, you have semi-detached. This would be a unit or a home that is attached to a single unit by at least one common wall, and there are exactly 2 living units in the total building or that are connected together. So again, if it's 2 units, semi-detached. If it's 3 or more that are connected together, row house, townhouse. And you can search for multiple product subtypes within the same residential search. So by way of example, you can select detached or semi-detached, or you can simply select one or the other. Again, you can make multiple selections there. Below that, you have your condo type. So again, searching for bare land, conventional, or not a condo. Over here, under location, your map searching tools remain basically exactly the same as they did under the CREB matrix system. So again, the ability to draw a radius, draw a polygon, or some other geometric shape to encompass a geographic area. In my opinion, these are probably more useful and more powerful than some of the other search functionality. But again, those function almost identically to how they did I would say they function identically to how they did under the CREB matrix system. You also have the ability to add in a street address or multiple street addresses if you desire. Below that, and we've spoken about this briefly when we talked about the Market Watch, there are some changes here. So county was formerly region. This would be used to indicate what county, municipal district, or major city your property is in. City was formerly area. This would be used to indicate what city, town, village, or hamlet the property is in. If none of the above, you can indicate with a rural municipality. So by way of example, under county here, if I was to type in Foothills County, and then under city, if I use this little picker here on the right-hand side, it will open up this dialog box. It will show me every town, village, hamlet, or smaller city within the county of Foothills. And I could select from this list. If I wanted to, I can also select rural Foothills County as well, and I can select OK. Now, subdivision was formerly community or community code. Those have been eliminated in favor of subdivision. This would be used to indicate what subdivision or community the property is in. We'll cover this in a little bit more detail when we get into the listing input tool. Under subdivision, if you've made selections, as I have for rural areas, you will see a list of rural subdivisions, in this case in rural Foothills County. So here's all of our rural subdivisions in that county on the left-hand side. If I were to make a selection, for example, for the city of Calgary, I don't have to fill anything under county. I can just put in Calgary if I like. I could also, if I wanted to, add another and put in Airdrie if I like. Sorry, let me spell Airdrie correctly. There we go. And then under my list of subdivisions, I would have all of the available options for both the city of Calgary and the city of Airdrie as well. And then I can make, of course, multiple selections under those fields if I so desire, okay? Now, district was formerly zone. This field is used the same as the previous system and is only applicable to the Calgary Economic Region. So again, you can search by district or zone if you so desire. Again, there's a condo name field, as has been the case previously in the current CREB system. Now, on pages 21 and 22 of your guide, it talks about the next level of search capability under features, which is directly below. So first and foremost here, we have structure type and we have levels. Now, levels is tied directly to the selections that you make under property subtype. So by way of example, if I was to choose detached as property subtype, then I have the ability to choose either house or manufactured house under structure type, and the levels are tied directly to this field as well. So because I've selected a detached property, I can then select from this list of levels for the property, or construction style of the property might be a better way to say it. Now, these options, these choices, so to speak, they come directly from RECA's RMS guidelines for residential properties. This field here, levels, most closely aligns with what was called style under the old system. So again, what was called style under the old system most closely aligns here with levels, and it allows you, based on RECA's RMS guidelines for residential properties, to select how many levels the home has that you're searching for. Below that, you'll see a new feature here called architectural style. This is new for this Pillar 9 system. This is an optional field that is there to provide additional opportunity to market, and in this case, to search for a particular property. For example, if you were listing a property, which is a one-level property, well, under architectural style, you can choose bungalow. In addition, some fields in architectural style are linked to various input selections that you make. For example, if you're listing a detached property, there is a field, and it's a required field for acreage, yes or no. If you select yes, then under architectural style, that property will be searchable as an acreage with residence. And I will explore that in more detail when we go through the listing input tool. But again, this architectural style field is new, and it is a searchable field that you can search for different marketing amenities of a particular property or group of properties as well, okay? Now, you'll see as well, there have been some changes and some additions and subtractions to various other fields that may have been within the current matrix system that we use, the Calgary Real Estate Board. If you want to add back any of the fields that you previously used. Remember, you have the ability to do that down here in the bottom left-hand corner under additional fields and select add. Over on the left-hand side, you have all of your available fields. Over on the right-hand side, you have any that you have selected. So let's just grab one here. We'll just grab, I don't know, we'll just grab fencing as an option. We'll add it over to our selected fields. And now down at the bottom here, we have the ability to search by different fencing types, products, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? Now it's gonna take some time to explore the functionality of this new search system and how it, how it is different from the current system that you're utilizing within Matrix now, because some of the names of the fields or the functionality of the fields have changed. Again, you can customize those by adding and removing different fields down here. Remember, based on any search criteria that you select, and it could just be a geographic area such as the city of Calgary, you can set this as your starting default. So if I select Calgary here from my list, and if I go up to this little sprocket or widget or gear or whatever you want to call it, I have the ability to set my currently selected search criteria as my starting default. That means in my case, every time I came in to do a residential search, I would by default be looking for detached product in the city of Calgary. But again, you can customize this to your heart's content. You can then set it as your selecting default, or you can leave the default settings alone, and every time you come in to perform a search, you simply put in the criteria that are applicable and appropriate for the search that you're conducting. Now, I have a wide net cast here right now, and I have 773 active matches. I'm going to go to my results page because I'm going to show you how a few things have differed or are different in this results page. And as you can appreciate right now, because I've not narrowed this down on a geographic area, I'm pulling property from all over the province of Alberta. So you see listings in here from Lacombe, Ponoka, Grand Prairie, Lac La Biche, all over the place. Of course, if you were doing a real search for real clients, you would make this more appropriate and applicable. But let's look at a couple things that have changed here. So again, this is your agent single line view that you're all familiar with. One thing that I do want to note, over here on the far right-hand side, you have days on market. And right now, we do not have a header in here for cumulative days on market. But one thing that's important to note, the way that the days on market and the cumulative days on market are being calculated will be different under Pillar 9. So cumulative days on market timing will reset to 0 in 15 days. This was previously 30 days, so it's a 15-day decrease. For example, if you had a listing that expired 15 plus days before the system migration, you will not have to wait the additional 15 days to relist. You will now be able to relist right away, and the CDOM will be reset. So again, under the current matrix system or the former matrix system, however you want to look at that, cumulative days on market totals would be recalculated or would be reset after 30 days. That has changed under Pillar 9 to be 15 days to reset, okay? Now, one of the other important things to remember or to note on page 26 of your course guide is some of you may have had custom displays that you had created in your matrix platform. So for example, you'd have the ability to look at certain data under a condominium or for a condominium, or you had the ability to look at certain data for a rural property or an acreage or these types of things. Those custom displays have not migrated over. In order to recreate those, you can go here to Manage Display. You can rename the display and save it as a copy. And then ultimately you can configure the display setup, the look and the feel, the number of columns, what columns are included, and all of that, and save it as a custom display. Again, if you utilize custom displays currently, you will have to reconfigure them within the Pillar 9 system. However, for your main single agent line display, the same rules apply. You can drag and drop all of these columns. You can shift them around. If you like, you can click on them and you can remove or insert various columns. Once you get the look and the feel set up in the way that you want, you can use this little gear or widget here to set that as your starting default. And every time you come into your agent single line view, the number of columns, the order of the columns, the number of results that are displaying per page will all be set up as your default and will be the same moving forward, okay? Again, you can recreate any custom displays you have here, and there are instructions to do so within page 26 of your participant guide. Now, let's migrate into the agent full view, because this will be a change for everybody. So I'm going to pick one listing at random here, and I'm going to go into the agent full view. And I'm on pages 27 through 29 of your course material. So first and foremost, you're going to notice across the top here, you have some additional tabs that you've never had before. So you have listing information, you have additional information, you have history, you have realtor info, photos, and map. Now, when I look at this agent full view, you're going to notice right away that the private member remarks are not visible here. In addition, if I was to scroll down to the bottom of this listing, you're going to see there's no information here about the seller's brokerage, the seller's agent, commission structure, etc. So from this listing view, that information is not visible. I need to navigate to this tab across the top to the realtor info. And now I can see if there are any member-only remarks. What is the commission structure? Who is the listing agent? What are the instructions for booking a showing, etc. So again, you need to navigate between these tabs in order to see that additional information. Why did they make this change? Well, when you go to print a listing, so I'm just going to select this one here, and I'm going to go down to the bottom to print. You're also going to see that on the left-hand side, you have fewer options than you used to have for various different views or various different configurations for printing. But the one that you're going to make the most use out of, I would suspect, is what they're calling the full view. Now, you have the ability when you select full to then select which tabs or which information do you want to be included. So for example, if you were going to be printing off a showing sheet for a buyer, you're very likely not going to include the realtor information, which is going to have the other, the listing agent's information, the listing brokerage's information, the commission structure, the private comments, etc. You may only include the listing info, the additional info, and the history of the property, for example. So again, when you choose from this full view, you can select from this list of tabs, and it will print off the appropriate information for the for what you're trying to customize or set up, whether for yourself or whether for a client. You also have several other views to choose from. So again, you have some thumbnail views in here, you have some CMA views, some multi-photo views. But again, if I go back to results, one of the biggest changes is they have these additional tabs across the top, and you will have to navigate between the tabs to get the information rather than have it on one singular page, okay? All right. That pretty much brings us to the end of our second module here. So I'm going to navigate back to our home screen, and we're going to talk about the listing input tool. So let's look at this listing input tool. Now, as I said at the beginning of the webinar here, this is going to be the biggest change when you compare the current matrix system to this Pillar 9 system. So first and foremost, you no longer have the ability to edit listings or make any changes to them or mark them as pending or sold from this main dashboard or interface here. Everything that you have to do, whether it's updating a current listing or, again, changing the status of a listing to pending or to sold or these types of things, or if you're just inputting a listing from scratch, all of it has to be done with this new listing input tool. And the way to navigate it is by using this little tab here. It's going to open up a second browser window for you. So you can navigate between the two browser windows. You can obviously be looking at the listing input tool or navigate back to this Pillar 9 dashboard here. But again, any maintenance that you're doing on any existing listings, or again, if you're adding a new listing for the very first time, all of it has to be done from this listing input tool. Now, there's two different ways that you can search for properties. First and foremost, I guess, you're going to see there's the Add New Listings button. There is a search listings feature here. Your office information, your agent information, of course, will be auto-populated. And then below, you have this little drop-down menu to search for listings as well. And so, like I said, there's basically two different ways that you can search for listings. Number one, using this little drop-down menu. Number two, using this search listings feature. And for those that are following along in the participant guide, I'm on page 30 of your user manual or your participant guide. Now, from what I've gathered from instructing these courses, again, throughout the province here, but not actually using this system myself, because of course, like you taking in this webinar session, my migration date is the same as yours. So, when I start to actively use this within my own business, I'm going to, pick up some new tips and tricks and learn some new things. But from what I have seen and from what I have gathered from instructing these webinars, is that if I was going to be doing maintenance to a listing, so let's say I was going to be changing the price, or I wanted to edit the public remarks, or I wanted to edit the private remarks, or I wanted to mark it as, from active to pending, or from pending to sold, etc. If I was going to be doing any maintenance to a listing, I would be using this little drop-down menu here. And so this drop-down menu will show you all of what I am going to call your current listings. Now, those are going to be listings that are active. Those are going to be listings that are incomplete or incoming. Those are going to be listings that are potentially withdrawn temporarily, or those that you have that you've marked as pending. Now, you can see from my drop-down menu, I have a horrendous amount of listings here, but that is because we've been using this as an instructor platform, and we've been creating a lot of fake listings for the purpose of educational purposes and exploring and utilizing the tool. Your system will not necessarily look like this. And again, you will see the MLS number displayed, you will see the address displayed, and then you'll see the status of your listing, so A for active. So again, if I was just going to be editing a listing, I would select the listing from this drop-down menu here. It's going to take me to my listing details page or my editing page. I would then go into the editing tool, or I would mark it as pending or mark it as sold if that was appropriate for what I was trying to do. Now, we will explore in more detail changing the statuses of properties at the very end of this session. But again, any status maintenance, any listing maintenance is going to be done from this listing input tool. And again, if you're searching for a current listing of yours, active, incomplete, withdrawn, or pending, I would utilize this little drop-down menu here. If you were looking for historical listings of yours, so listings that had sold previously, or listings that were expired or terminated, I would be using this listing search. So again, all I did was navigate to this little search button up at the top. It opens up this little search window for me. If I know the specific MLS number that I'm looking for, I can enter it in. I can also search by address if I knew the exact address I was looking for. But the other thing that I can do is I can search by status and type. So under status, I can pick multiple statuses. So let's say I wanted to search for my terminated and my withdrawn listings, terminated and expired listings. I can create a search and it will show me any terminated or expired listings that I have. Now, why would I want to do this? Well, if I was going to be relisting a property, so you can see these three properties here are in the expired status. So of course the listing contract has ended. If I wanted to relist that property because the seller had agreed to allow me to relist it, I can find my expired or terminated listing. I can go in and I can use this little feature here, this little yellow button with a couple pieces of paper, and I can copy this listing. If I copy the listing, it will create a new incoming listing, and it will bring over roughly about 60 points of data from the former listing into the new listing that I am creating. We have a similar feature currently within Matrix where you can copy an existing listing of yours. This is exactly the same functionality, but in order to perform this, it's a little bit different. So again, what I've done is I've gone to search listings. I've searched by status. In my case, I went with terminated and expired. And then ultimately I would select the ones that the one that I wanted to copy from. I would hit the copy button and it would create a new incoming status listing for me. Now, this information can be found on pages 30 or page 31 of your guide. And those are two different ways that you can search for listings, whether they're active or current, I guess I should say, or they're historical. Now, if you're going to add a new listing from scratch, so you're not copying an existing listing, you're just going to add a new listing from scratch. I'm starting on pages 33 and 34 of your course guide. You're going to go here to add a new listing. And as I spoke about on the search side, here are the 6 categories of property, the broad stroke categories or types of property for when you're entering or you're searching for a listing. Is it residential? Is it multifamily? Keeping in mind, multifamily does not mean condominium. It would be synonymous with multi-unit. It's more than one unit being listed together as a group or as part of a single transaction. Is it mobile? Is it land, commercial, etc.? Let's start with a residential listing. I'm not going to redefine these because I already did that under the search functionality. And again, you can find this information if you want a refresher on pages 33 and 34 of your course material. So if I go to create a residential listing, here is my listing input tool. Now, one of the things that I've been told, but I have not yet utilized this in my own business, is that this listing input tool will work well on any mobile device. So it is dynamic, and if you're on a mobile device, my understanding from what I've been told is that this listing input tool is very functional in a mobile platform, okay? First and foremost, you're gonna see, of course, I'm in the listing or the editing tool. You're gonna see the MLS number. Now, moving forward across Pillar 9, it doesn't matter if you're listing a property in Medicine Hat, Grand Prairie, Calgary, Airdrie, Cochrane, whatever, all of the MLS listings under Pillar 9 will start with the letter A for Alberta. They will no longer be board specific. You can also see as well, here's the status of this particular listing. Of course, it is incomplete or incoming because I've just started the process of it. You then have some buttons here across the top. You can discard changes. So if you make changes in a current session in your editing tool and you just want to do away with those, you can discard them. There's a tax auto pop tool. Again, this works similar to how our current system does within the Matrix platform, but I will explore this and flesh it out in a little bit more detail. There's a validation summary that you can run. Again, we have a similar tool currently within Matrix. If I run this validation summary, it's going to show me all of the fields that I still need to fill out. Of course, I haven't filled out anything, so it stands to reason there's going to be a lot there to fill out. You can close or collapse the validation summary by simply clicking on it. And again, you'll now see under all of the headers or the categories of information, they have turned to red, indicating that I have outstanding required information that I have to fill out. Save is incomplete. I would strongly recommend you do this periodically through the process of going through and loading up a listing. This program, to the best of my understanding, does auto save at periodic times. But again, if you get timed out or your internet cuts out or something happens, you don't want to be re-inputting information that you've already put in, okay? Finally, if you were going to make this an active listing and you're ready to actually list the property, you would run your validation summary, make sure you have no outstanding fields, and then you would click the submit button here, and that would turn it into an active status listing. Now, we're not going to go that far in our little demonstration, and we certainly don't have time to talk about each and every field here. You're likely going to notice as you explore these different headers and these different categories that there are more fields, more required fields than the old system had. So if you have questions about those, there are little question marks that you can hover over on many of these fields to get additional information. In addition, of course, you can reach out to the help desk either with the phone number that we provided or the email that we provided at the beginning to get some guidance and some understanding about these fields. I would strongly encourage you to take some time to explore this listing input tool because, again, this is going to be, of the changes that are coming under the Pillar 9 system, this is going to be one of the most noticeable changes, so to speak. So you're going to want to take some time to get used to it, familiarize yourself with it. Again, maybe create a couple fake listings for yourself so you can explore the functionality and fully understand everything and how it operates. Now, on pages 37 and 38, there's some more information about this tax auto pop tool. And again, like I said, we have a similar feature within the current Matrix system at the Calgary Real Estate Board. When you open up this tax auto pop tool, you can use the civic address of a property to search for the link number and some additional tax information. However, this will only work currently at migration. This will only work in Grand Prairie, the city of Red Deer, the city of Medicine Hat, and what they're calling the Calgary Economic Region. So the city of Calgary, of course, and the surrounding larger satellite communities. So if I was to put in a civic address here, and I'm just going to pick one from Airdrie, I'm going to put in 562 Tanner Drive. Sorry, I'm going to put in 562 Tanner Drive. Just bear with me for 1 sec here. 562, and then the street name is Tanner. I'm not going to put in drive because that is the type. I'm going to hit search. And there is 562 Tanner Drive. Now keep in mind, you may get multiple results because hypothetically there could be a 562 Tanner Place, Tanner Crescent, etc. But once I've found the property that I want, you can see first and foremost, it's going to display the link number for me. And it's going to allow me to update my listing using this little yellow box. When I do that, it's going to autofill some pieces of information into the listing for me. So under address and location, it's of course going to fill the civic address of the property. In addition, there is a required field here, which is a location plotter. And if I navigate over here on the far right-hand side, there's a little globe. And if I click on the globe, this location plotter will auto-populate the location of my listing based on the link number, okay? In addition to this, if I were to go under tax information, there's some more information that's been pulled over. So again, the link number has auto-populated and some additional tax information, zoning information, legal information for the property has been brought over as well. Now again, the way that I just demonstrated that by using the civic address of a property, that will only work at migration in Grand Prairie, Medicine Hat, Red Deer, and the Calgary Economic Region. Now moving forward, more data and more municipalities or municipal districts will be added to this feature as that data becomes available. But again, at migration, it's just the 4 areas mentioned. However, you can put in a link number for anywhere in the province of Alberta, and the location plotter will still work. So I'm going to use an example here, which is in northern Alberta, just north of High Level in the Mackenzie area, because again, keep in mind, the whole point of this Pillar 9 system, or one of the points of this Pillar 9 system, is that it's going to encompass data from all over the province, not just board-specific information. So I'm going to put in this link number here, and I'm going to hit search. And again, this will work anywhere in the province of Alberta. I'm going to find the link number that's associated with the search that I just did, and I'm going to hit update. This time, under address and location, if I were to navigate down to my location plotter, you will see that it has plotted the location of this property. And like I said, it's just north of High Level in northern Alberta, and it is a rural property. Now, one thing to note is when you're plotting rural property, or when the location plotter is plotting rural property based on the link number, it's often going to put the pin or the locating tool directly in the middle of the property itself. Best practice when you're plotting rural property, move this pin to the access road to the property. The idea being, if you were going to meet clients, or another agent was going to meet their clients, where would they be meeting the clients to gain access to the property? They're not going to meet the clients right in the middle of the field. They're going to meet the clients at the access road to the property. Once you've reestablished the pin location, make sure you come down here and hit update, and that will update the GPS coordinates so that if somebody is following that pin, that they are able to find it, okay? All right. Again, that, and just to reiterate again, that system that I just utilized by using tax autopop and putting in the link number, that will work for property anywhere in the province of Alberta. Again, civic address only works in the 4 areas previously mentioned. In your chat box, there should be a link to a document to allow you to, or to help you find a link number if you're searching for ways to gather that information, okay? All right, now under address and location, we've talked before about county, city, and subdivision. They are newly named fields. County was formerly area. County was formerly region, city was formerly area, and subdivision is a new field here. Again, you're going to want to plot the location of these. If it is a larger city, for example, the city of Calgary, Calgary is its own county and city as well. However, for example, Rocky View County, once you select the county, you could then select the city. So for example, if it was Cochrane, or if it was Delacour, or if it was Bicycle, etc. But you can also select the rural county from the city list as well. So if you're listing a property that is not in a town or a village or any kind of municipality, if it's in strictly a rural area, you can select both the rural areas under county and city. Remember, as I demonstrated or said before, there will be a list of subdivisions in, by way of example here, rural Rocky View County. Subdivision is a required field. So if the property you're listing is not in a rural subdivision, you can select none, but it is a required field, okay? One of the things to note about this system as well is that based on the selections that you make, certain information will become required. And I haven't mentioned this yet, but all of the required fields have a little green dialog box under them that says that it's required information. And in addition, they have a little green triangle with a white exclamation mark in it. So by way of example here, if we look at Meridian Range Township Section and Quarter right now, these are not required fields. However, if I was to run a validation summary or save this listing as incomplete and come back into it, you will see that because I have selected my location, my city as being a rural area, these are now required fields. So again, the listing input tool is, I guess, intuitive from the sense that based on the selections that you are making as you are entering properties, certain information becomes required when it's triggered by the system. With the example here of a rural property where, again, the city is chosen as a rural area, there is also a rural tab. And if I navigate down here to this rural tab, you will see that there's some additional required information: surface lease, 911 address, nearest town, etc. And that's simply based on the selections that I'm making as I'm going through and I'm inputting the property. Also under, not under the address and location, but under the general tab, there is a required field for condominium. And based on the selection that you make there, if it is a condominium that you are listing under condo type here, if I select bare land or conventional, then there is a condo section that will have some additional required information. For example, the condo fee, the unit factor, the parking description, etc. So again, as you move through and make selections and input your property, certain fields may become required or mandatory based on the selections and the inputs that you are making as you work your way through this tool, okay? Additional information on condos can be found on page 43 of your participant guide if you want to read that over. Below here we have structure, so I'm going to open up the structure tab. Now at this point in time, all we've done is we've started with a residential listing. We haven't explained or we haven't marked off what kind of a property is. We've simply put in that it's residential. Under structure is where you're going to make those distinctions. So we talked before about the property subtypes, apartment, detached, townhouse, and row house. Remember, townhouse, row house is when you have 3 or more units or homes that are attached together, whereas semi-detached is just 2 of them that are attached together. Remember, of course, the access must be directly to the outside world. If it's a common enclosed hallway, of course, it's listed as an apartment. Now I'm going to select detached as my property subtype because I want to show you something about acreage down here. Again, because I've selected detached, if I was to run a validation summary or if I was going to save as incomplete and come back into the editing tool and navigate back to structure, you will see now that acreage is a required field, yes or no. That's because I've chosen my property subtype as detached. If I were to select acreage, yes. So again, in my example, I'm listing in a rural area right now. If I list this as an acreage, then by default, my property will be searchable as an acreage with residence under architectural style on the search page. And I showed you that earlier when we were searching for properties. Architectural style is a new field. It is the ability to search for certain marketing amenities about a particular property. But again, if you select a detached property and you select acreage yes, then by default, the property will be searchable as an acreage with residence under architectural style. You can find more information on that on page 44 of your course material. Remember, again, we spoke about structure. We have the ability, because it's detached, to mark it as a house or a manufactured house. Again, levels comes directly from RECA's RMS guidelines. Is it a 1-level home? Is it a 2-level home? Is it a 4-level or a 5-level split, a bi-level, etc.? Remember, again, there are numerous other fields under architectural style that you can select from to market the property. So, for example, if it is a 1-story home, under architectural style, you could select bungalow. It's not a required field, but you can certainly check off any and all that would apply. All right, going to move our way down here. Now, adding rooms. And this information is all covered on pages 46 and 47 of your course material. And this is a little bit different than how you would currently add rooms or bathrooms in particular onto the current matrix system. So within this Pillar 9 system, any room type, doesn't matter if it's a bathroom or a storage room or a kitchen or a bedroom or any of that, it's all entered in exactly the same way through the same field, and that is this rooms tab or this rooms header here, okay? In order to add a room of any type, you simply select add. You then have to choose what type of room it is. So when this data pulls over onto the public-facing side, which is realtor.ca, the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, all of that data pulls directly from whatever you input here. So for example, I'm going to put in here my master bedroom. And in my fictitious example, we're listing a 1-bedroom home, so I'm going to put this on the main floor. Now, room dimensions you can do in feet or meters. It's totally up to you. The one nuance that you have to be aware of is right now at migration, there is no field for feet and inches here. You must input it as a decimal. So if the room is, for example, 10 feet and 6 inches wide, you're going to put in 10.5 by, let's say, 8 feet. Okay. Again, all of the dimensions will pull over onto realtor.ca. If I want to add a bathroom, it's the exact same process. Under room type, I'm going to select bathroom, whether it's a 2-piece bath or a 4-piece bath or an ensuite or whatever. They're all added the same way. The one distinction is you do not have to put in room dimensions if you do not want to for bathrooms or storage rooms or utility rooms or anything of that nature. You can if you like, but you're not required to. Again, I know that in the current matrix system that you're all familiar with, you simply enter in the number of 2-piece baths or the number of 4-piece baths. You must add them each individually as a room under this Pillar 9 system, okay? Below that, let's talk about photos. Now, in the current system, if you want to upload photos or you want to upload supplements or you want to upload an open house, you have to navigate out of the actual listing input tool, and sort of under the different tools that you have for listing maintenance, you can add your photos, supplements, open houses, etc. All of this is now done from this one singular tool. So if I wanted to add any photos for my listing, I simply go here under photos and I select upload. I can drag and drop my images if I like, or I can go to the top here to choose files, which will open up my file manager, and I just happen to have some photos queued up. You can upload up to 50 photos, just like you can under the current system. Remember, of course, you have to have at least one picture of the property. You have to have at least one exterior shot of the property. There is some information on pages 47 and 48 about photos. There's some additional information about harmonized guidelines around what is acceptable with respect to listing photos, what can be advertised, what can be marketed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Once you've uploaded the photos, again, you can upload up to 50 of them. You can manipulate them, which means you can drag and drop them anywhere that you want, or to create the order in the field that you want, however you want to do that. You also have the ability to edit the photo. So if you needed to crop the photo or you needed to rotate the photo 90 degrees or 180 degrees, you can do that. You can also, in the dialog box here, if you so desire, add comments. So front of house. These comments will display on realtor.ca, so just be aware of that as well. But you can go along and you can add dialogue or commentary about the photos if you so choose. And again, up to 50 photos. Supplements. Very, very similar process. It has its own tab or header, however you want to say it. Again, you simply go to upload. Again, you can drag and drop, or you can go to your file manager here by choosing files. Again, I just happen to have some queued up. Remember, of course, you do need to upload a RMS diagram every time you load up a listing onto the Pillar 9 system. That requirement has not changed. You can upload up to 20 supplements if you so desire. These could be things like a real property report or a property title, which I happen to have an example of right here. Simply upload the file. Once the file has been uploaded, you navigate back down to supplements. You select what type of a supplement this is. In my case, it was a title, so pick that one. And if I wanted to, I could write a short description, etc. Of course, this is useful for things like floor plans or condominium documents, or again, real property reports, titles, RMS guidelines or RMS measurements, of course, is one of the ones you're required to. If it's a judicial sale or a foreclosure, Schedule A's, Schedule B's, specific contracts that need to be, the offers need to be written on. Again, you can upload up to 20 supplements, and as before, these supplements are only viewable by your peers on the back-end system of Pillar 9. These will not be visible to the public on realtor.ca. Again, that hasn't changed. There's more information in your course material on pages 48 and 49 about uploading supplements. All right, on to the remarks page. They have changed the capacity here. They've increased the capacity for the public remarks. If I'm not mistaken, under the current system, it's 1,020 characters. That includes spaces and punctuation. Under this Pillar 9 system, I believe it is 3,020 characters and spaces, including punctuation. In addition, they've upgraded the capacity for agent-only remarks. I believe it's currently about 500, give or take, under the current CREB system. It's been upgraded or expanded to roughly about 1,000 under this Pillar 9 system. Now, as I said before, with respect to open houses, under the current system, you would have to navigate away from the listing input tool, so to speak, in order to add information about open houses. In addition, and I realize this is an ever-changing world that we're all currently living in, but for the past 3 months, you haven't been able to do an in-person open house, and we've all been relying on, in one way, shape, or form, the idea of a virtual open house. And currently, the only way to add a virtual open house is by navigating through CREA's website, through the DDF, and adding the open house that way, and then promoting the open house directly from CREA. Well, within this Pillar 9 system, any open house that you want to market, whether it's in person or it's going to be virtual, you can add your open house directly from this listing input tool. So if I go here to add, I can then customize all the information for this particular open house. So let's say I was going to have an open house, and by the time you watch this video, it might be outdated, but let's say I was going to have an open house on Saturday, the 20th of June. I can select my start time rather, say I wanted to start at 2 p.m. Maybe I want to run it to 4 p.m. And if I was going to do a virtual open house, I could add a live URL if I desired from open house type. You can still select between MLS wide, office, and public. Generally speaking, you're only going to do public. You have the same options under virtual open house. So if you wanted to run a public virtual open house, you can add that public virtual open house with that live URL direct from this open house input tool. You do not have to do it through CREA's DDF feed, and that will be marketed on realtor.ca as well. Or again, if you're back to running a more traditional open house and you want to skip the virtual open house altogether, simply market it as a public or whatever your choice is. You can add comments, refreshments, etc. And then ultimately you can add this directly from your listing input tool. There's more information on page 50 of your course guide about open houses. Now there are 2 sections left to speak to, one called units and one called verification. With respect to units, way back here under the general tab, so if I navigate all the way back up to the top, there is a required field within here about suite. It's a yes or no question, but it is a required field. So from this drop-down menu here, I select suite, yes or no. Is there a suite or not? It's not asking me if it's legal. It's not asking me any additional information about it. It's just a yes or no field. So let's say hypothetically I answer yes. If I was to run a validation summary or save it as incomplete and come back in, you would then see that this units tab becomes a required field. This units tab will allow me to add more information about the suite that I am marketing. How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, how many units total. It might just be one if it's a basement suite or whatever. And then is it legal or illegal? As always, or as previous, I guess, the guidance on this legal or illegal comes directly from REX. REX doesn't appreciate the terminology of conforming versus non-conforming or grandfathered or mother-in-law or these types of things. And that's why you see your only 2 choices there with respect to the legality of the suite it's either legal or it's illegal. And again, as before, if you're going to market it as a legal suite, you're going to want to make sure that you have the documentation to back that up, and protect yourself in that type of a situation, okay? So again, under the general tab, under that suite heading or that suite input field, if you select yes, units will be a required field and you will be required to add more information about the unit that is being marketed. Finally, you have the verification tab. So I said to you, quite a while ago in this webinar, every effort has been made so that when your active listings migrate over to this Pillar 9 system, that they are accurate, they are complete, and all of these types of things. That said, it will be incumbent on you to verify the accuracy and the completeness of your own listings. So once the data migration is complete on July the 8th, or shortly thereafter, come into your listing input tool, find your active listings, go through all of these different fields, make sure the data is correct, make sure the photos are correct, make sure the number of rooms is correct, all of that stuff, bathrooms, etc., etc., etc. Make sure it's all come over correctly. Once you've done that, go down here to migration verification and select yes. There will be follow-up at a board level if you don't verify the accuracy of your migrated listings. So please ensure that you verify the accuracy. One other thing that I will say, or that's been conveyed to me, is that any of the standards that were appropriate or applicable under the CREB matrix system will be grandfathered into active listings that migrate over to this Pillar 9 system. But any listings that get listed after migration, so any new listings that come onto the Pillar 9 system, will fall under the rules and regulations of the Pillar 9 system. So again, they will grandfather existing listings, so to speak, but any new listings are going to fall under the rules, regulations, parameters of this Pillar 9 system. Again, bottom line, make sure you verify the accuracy and completeness of your listings, okay? Now, that's the listing input tool in a nutshell. Again, I would strongly suggest you take some time to explore all of these fields. I would strongly encourage you to take some time to create some fake listings for yourself just to get used to how this system works. Remember, you have read-only access on the 29th of June. That said, I can tell you from watching other boards migrate across the province, I don't think you're going to have access to this listing input tool until the data has completely migrated on the 8th of July. They do that on purpose so that you're not entering active listings until the data has completely migrated. Once you have full system access, though, take some time to familiarize yourself with this tool and get used to it. It is not that much different than what you currently utilize. Trust me, I've been using it as an instructor for about the past month, give or take, maybe 2 months now. It will take some time to get used to, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much different, okay? Now, if you've created an incomplete listing or an incoming listing and you're doing it just as a test run for yourself, you can save as incomplete. Actually, I guess the one other thing I should say before I do that is if I was actually going to be listing this property, and I've mentioned this already, if I was actually going to be listing this house on Tanner Drive, I would put in all the information, I would run a validation summary, I would make sure I have no outstanding fields, and once I was ready to pull the trigger and put it live on MLS, I would hit submit. But that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to delete this incoming listing, and here's how you do that. You go to Save as Incomplete, and incomplete listings will be the only ones you have the ability to delete, but you can go here to Delete Listing. You select Yes, you want to delete it, and now you select Submit, and that will delete your incoming status listing. So again, I would strongly encourage you to play around with this listing input tool, explore the functionality of it, create yourself some fake listings, and then of course make sure you delete them if you're just using it as a beta test for yourself. Remember, again, there are 2 different ways to search for listings, using this search button here, or for what I'm going to call your current listings, meaning again your actives, your pendings, your withdrawns, or your incomplete or incomings. Use this little drop down menu here. Now I'm going to navigate away from this the actual live version of Matrix or the Pillar 9 system here for just a sec. And we're going to finish off the last 5 minutes of our conversation just going through a few PowerPoint slides that talk about changing the status of various listings. Now, I'm on page 52 of your course guide if you are following along. So we've already talked at length about this listing input tool, and I've already shown you the 2 different ways that you can search for listings. Either you use the search button or you use the little drop-down list. If you use the search button, then you can fill out the appropriate criteria. You can put in the MLS number if you know which one you're looking for, or you can search by address, or again, you can search by property type or multiple property types. So again, your actives, your incompletes, your pendings, etc. Once you find a listing that potentially you're going to copy to create a new incoming listing, you can select it from your list of choices, hit the copy button. This will create a new incoming status listing for you. The next thing you should do would be to run a validation summary to see what other information is going to have to be put into that new incoming listing. On page 52 of your course guide, there is a chart that's been created which shows you roughly 60 data points that would copy from your former expired or terminated, whatever that listing is, but your former previous listing into your new incoming listing. But then again, run your validation summary, find which information is still outstanding, complete those fields, and of course, if you're making it an active status listing, you could then make it into an active status listing, okay? Just a quick reminder of the changes in status from the current, or I guess former, depending on the time frame you're watching this video, but the current CREB matrix system into the Pillar 9 matrix system. The biggest takeaway, in my opinion, is that they have combined the pending and the under contract status into one status, which is pending. They have also added conditionally terminated under the terminated status. It is not its own searchable field any longer. We'll talk about this briefly in just a sec as well. Now let's talk about changing the statuses of listings under this Pillar 9 system. And again, I'm on pages, basically about 54 through about 56 of your course guide if you're following along. So if you have an active status listing and you navigate to your active status listing, you would have the ability to edit that listing. You would have the ability to change it to sold or to change it as pending. Okay, let's talk first about marking it as pending. So if you're going to change it from active to pending, you're going to have to report some information in here. You're going to have to report the offer date. That would be the date the offer was actually accepted and signed by all parties. You're going to have to report the date that the conditions are expected to be removed, and you're going to have to report the date that the property is expected to transfer ownership, and then you're going to hit submit. In your course material, there's some information you're going to want to review on pages 57, 58 about the harmonized rules around status changes. I will allow you to review that material. There is also an updated version of the conditional sale disclosure instruction. Remember, again, they've done away with the under contract status, and they've just rolled it under pending. Again, make sure you understand these harmonized rule changes, which are now applicable across Pillar 9, so for all 9 boards across the province. And again, make sure you familiarize yourself with this new conditional sale disclosure instruction as well. Now on page 59 of your course material, it talks about changing a property from pending or active to sold. So if it was a pending listing and you've now removed conditions and you're going to mark it as sold, or it's been left in active status and you want to mark it as sold, you navigate to the listing, whether it's pending or active, you select sold. In either case, you're going to have to report the final sale price. You're going to have to report the date the conditions were removed, or the firming date if you like. And you're going to have to report the adjustment date, which is the date the property is expected to actually transfer ownership. What you don't see displayed on your screen as well is you will have to report information about the buyer's agent, the buyer's agent's brokerage, etc., etc., etc. All right, we've talked before about changing a property to withdrawn. Again, this can be done on a temporary basis for up to 10 days for various reasons. The days on market counter will continue to accumulate. If you need to withdraw a listing, you need to have the correct paperwork filled out. You need to have that paperwork signed by a principal brokerage member. That could be the broker themselves. That could be your broker delegate. That could be an office manager, somebody who has signing authority on behalf of the broker or the brokerage. And then you would submit that paperwork to the broker for processing to a withdrawn listing. Let's talk then about changing to terminated status. This is a very, very similar process to what you're used to under the current system. Members may not cancel or terminate their own listings. You need to provide the appropriate paperwork signed and provide it to the broker. The broker can then process that termination on your behalf. In addition, if there are conditions that go along with the termination of the property, that broker has the ability to indicate whether or not there are conditions of the termination. If there are conditions, the broker can also input a date of expiration of those conditions. Once that date has passed, the listing will simply revert to a terminated listing. Finally, we've already spoken about this. If you have an incomplete or an incoming listing and you're playing around with it as a beta test or these types of things, you have the ability to delete it. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a step ahead of myself. If you have an incoming listing and you want to make it as active, I've showed you how to do this already. Run a validation summary, make sure you have no outstanding fields left, and then select submit from your list of choices. That will turn it into an active status listing. If you have an incomplete or an incoming listing and you want to delete it, select the listing, select delete, select yes from your choice of options as to whether or not you want to delete it, and then finally select submit. Remember, incomplete or incoming status listings are the only listings that you have the ability to delete. Once a listing is in an active status or any other status, you do not have the ability to delete the listing, only the incomplete or the incoming listings. So that wraps up our pre-recorded webinar. Again, just to highlight some of the dates before we sign off. June 29th, you will receive read-only access to this Pillar 9 system. The full data migration for the Calgary Real Estate Board will take place between July the 7th and 8th. Moving forward, you would then have full system access to Pillar 9, and you will have read-only access to your current or former CREB matrix system. That will go on for roughly about 2 weeks. Remember, you're going to want to optimize and make sure you reinitiate and recustomize things like branding, auto emails, your Market Watch tool, etc. Again, as far as myself, I haven't utilized this Pillar 9 system within my own business, but I've been instructing agents or helping agents with the migration now across the province for a couple months. I know it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but like I said at the very onset, it is built on a matrix platform that is very, very similar to the one we all utilize right now. The biggest learning curve will be the listing input tool, but I think with a little bit of practice, we're all hopefully going to see some positive things coming out of this Pillar 9 system. So on behalf of my producer on today's session, Charlotte Tran, this is Ryan Smith signing off, and thank you very much for participating.